all of humanity has gone through something very unprecedented and something that we have never been prepared for. When it comes to the impact on learning and especially foundational learning, I think there is a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, a lot of brainstorming that is happening, whether it is parents or whether it's educators. Yet, I think that when we talk about all the studies that have come through, when we talk about the learning deficits, the learning regression, and eventually the cumulative learning gap that has emerged as a result of this, I believe that it is not really a gap, but it is actually a chasm. When we look at young children, these are the most robust years of their development. The ages from 0 to 8 or 0 to 10. Now you just look at the fact that if I take a government school student, a student is going to enter class 3 in the next academic year without ever having stepped into a school. In a private school situation, a child is going to enter class 1 without ever having been to school. How do we pick it up from there? How are we going to address the fact that a classroom or a school is not just a space where syllabus is transacted, where teaching learning is transacted, but the fact that there is such a large amount of intellectual, emotional, and spiritual growth that happens as a result of being in that space. How do we replace that? In a sense, there are two ways in which we can actually understand the chasm that has been created. One is from certain things that we would see in the short term, things that can probably be assessed to a certain extent. But the larger thing is certain elements that will manifest themselves only much later in life. We may not be able to do a whole lot about it, but we will find that we will innovate and we will create solutions once we understand the fact that this is something that has these two parts. One, the tangible, measurable parts, and the intangible, immeasurable parts when it comes to the growth or the development of the child himself or herself. When we specifically look at the element of the child coming back to school next academic year and how are we going to address, probably one of the first things that we must understand is that these 2 years that have been lost and the additional regression that has happened effectively amount to a gap of about 3 years in that very specific teaching learning mode. We cannot at any point in time be overwhelmed by the situation and try to run fast and try to bridge the gap in too small a period of time. We also cannot imagine that we are going to do everything that we would have done during the last 3 years at a faster pace. So we would have to be extremely selective. This is probably one of those most important moments when we have to stop thinking syllabus, curriculum, assessment, rather think about the skills. From a foundational perspective, if I have foundational literacy well thought through, if I have foundational numeracy well thought through, chances are that in the matter of the next 24 months or so, we can leave the child in a very, very good place from where to take off. Second most important thing for us to understand is that an advantage that we gained during this period is the fact that many homes and parents actually started participating in the child's learning and development in a much more committed manner than they normally would. This is something that needs to continue. This job of getting past the challenges that we have faced is not the job of the school and the teacher alone. It is probably one of the most collaborative phases in teaching and learning that must happen over the next couple of years. We have had online classes. Teachers and educators have worked very hard to put them together. But at the end of the day, just like we talked in the beginning, the physical classroom, that physical space, the online classroom simply cannot replicate it. as much as the effort that was put in was considerable, the outcome, unfortunately, is not going to match what the physical classroom would have given by a long shot. So we have to come back to that idea of the fact that how do I think about this purely from a skills perspective rather than from a syllabus perspective? How can I have the courage to park certain elements of assessment which judge the child? Because these sometimes can mislead us. I still find that when during conversations with educators, they say that the children have done reasonably well in their tests that we have given them. The children have filled their worksheets and given it back. This is probably the greatest delusion that can happen. The fact of the matter is that we need to go far beyond assessment and syllabus if the journey forward for the child has to be a beautiful one of learning.